Boko Haram is not a northern problem, but a Nigerian problem with global implications. Nigeria is not a country divided by north and south, but a country divided between those who support freedom and equality in the eyes of the law and those who promote persecution and violence as a means to an end.
The face of global terror confirmed itself without a shred of doubt in 2008 in Maiduguri, Nigeria, Africa's most populous country. After decades of denial, the federal government of Nigeria was brought face to face with the specter it had refused to acknowledge for years.
That we have decided to work out means to defend ourselves against these senseless killing.
Mostly Christians who refused to get converted to Islamism under the threat of the sword. The Nigerian security forces were totally unprepared and ill-equipped for the terror attacks. The Nigerian army was called in and only managed to douse the threat after almost 2 weeks of fighting on 3 or 4 battlefronts. Most Nigerian citizens will never realize that it could have been much worse. One of the Boko Haram strongholds in the same network was shut down in Kaduna, the spiritual capital of northern Nigeria, a few days before Maiduguri exploded. One of the bravest stories that came out of the Yusufiya terror attacks at Maiduguri in 2008 was that of Emmanuel Orji, the pastor who resisted Yusuf Muhammad to the face by refusing to get converted to Islam under duress. Emmanuel died a martyr under the direct orders of Yusuf Muhammad. Emmanuel was beheaded, and the witnesses of the execution said he told those standing by to tell his people back home that, "Tell them I died well." The Nigerian army subdued the jihad of Yusufiya while the soldiers captured the Mujahideen. The captive was handed over to the police force but was executed in an extrajudicial killing. Some say he was silenced by the orders from above, who wished to protect the identity of his collaborators in high places. The Western press had a field day covering the Maiduguri terror cells, dubbing them the Boko Haram. The unpreparedness and inadequacy of the Nigerian police force came under the searchlight when the Mujahideen's father-in-law was executed without trial. The Western press went to town again, and an unprecedented 100 million naira was paid to the Mujahideen's family as compensation. The press, however, kept silent about widows like Veronica Orji and the thousands that Yusuf had murdered in his quest for jihad. No compensation was paid, and no one remembered them. From that point onwards, the network of terror cells called Boko Haram escalated their attacks. While the government continued to respond with confusion, Christianity was practically paralyzed in Borno and Yobe states. The Boko Haram made no secret of its hatred for Christian faith and its plan to obliterate it from the Nigerian history. In its open declarations, the church was its first pronounced enemy, followed by the Nigerian democracy and every other institution that stood in the way of its conquest. The final objective was the declaration of Nigeria as an Islamic state, with the Sharia as its governing principle. Ignoring all the Islamist rhetoric, the Western press continued to champion a byline, Boko Haram, the hatred for Western education, as the selling point of the Nigerian phase of global terror. The activities of the Boko Haram ceased to be a cocktail discussion when the terror group bombed the United Nations building in Abuja, the Nigerian capital, on Friday, the 21st of August 2011. In another audacious move, the terror group had attempted to take out the former Inspector General of Police by bombing the police headquarters in Abuja. Boko Haram extended its bombing activities to several police headquarters across the northern belt. Hotels, public gatherings, shopping malls, etc. were targeted, but few of the terror bombings equaled the ferocity unleashed at Christmas Day affair at the Catholic Church in Madala, Niger State in 2011. Further activities concentrated around Suleja, Bauchi, Kaduna, Kano, and Jos had established the grave danger posed by the Islamic threat to peace and unity of Nigeria. The sophistication of attacks, kidnappings and terror activities has left no one in doubt as to the global hand in the proceedings. Captured Boko Haram terrorists kept in jails have often been set free in jailbreaks and occasionally through surreptitious deals traceable to men in high places. By reason of the fact that the total eradication of religious pluralism is the first stated objective of the terror group, the Christian Association of Nigeria is had to rise in the defense of the Nigerian Christian majority. Except for deaf ears, the Boko Haram has communicated to all that conversion to Islam is the only precondition for peace with all Nigerian Christians, as church after church was bombed and the casualty figure continued to rise. The Christian Association of Nigeria protested to the government vigorously, decrying the falsification of statistics and inaction that characterized the official response to terror attacks. Blinded by the political ambitions and a manic drive to protect its financial advantages, the ruling class turned a deaf ear to the plea of the church. Back to the wall, the Christian Association of Nigeria presidency was left with no choice but to advise its members to rise and defend their turf. At that point in time, the political class found it voice to criticize the right for Christians to defend themselves.
That we have decided to work out means to defend ourselves against these senseless killing.